Kristen, thanks. Minute past the hour. New this morning, District Attorney Carrie Brandenburg says she's worried about her safety since filing murder charges against two Albuquerque police officers.
In an interview with the Albuquerque Free Press last week, she claims she's been told by officers at APD that she should be afraid. She added, quote, "I don't think they're going to kill me, but I have been told to fear for my safety." Now, according to the Albuquerque Journal, federal officials say they were preparing to refer Brandenburg's concerns to the FBI, but stopped because Brandenburg said she did not want to pursue it. The Journal says APD released a statement last week saying they would discuss her concerns and investigate internally. Now, this all comes as Brandenburg filed charges against Officer Keith Sandy and Dominic Perez for the shooting death of homeless camper James Boyd just last year. Brandenburg's office will not be prosecuting that case after a judge ruled there is a conflict of interest. She tapped a special prosecutor, Randy McGinn, to continue in that case.
Now, former Albuquerque Police Chief Ray Schultz could face criminal charges for a deal he made before his retirement. As News 13 first told you last year, Schultz was lining up a $2 million city contract for Taser body cameras just as he was about to go to work for that company. Yesterday, State Auditor Tim Keller announced the results of his investigation, saying he found Schultz and other employees took free trips from Taser leading up to that deal. Keller says Schultz and others violated state and city laws meant to protect taxpayers from conflicts of interest. The mayor's office says this is concerning.
I think what we saw in the investigation is also a tone from the top that really is speaking to being kind of fast and footloose with the law when it comes to procurement code and when it comes to ethics.
And it's important for our employees to understand this, especially our executive team, that even the perception of unethical decisions on behalf of a contractor or a vendor is something that's not going to be tolerated.
Keller also pointed out there was little competition for the bid. We first reported this on the KRQE News app and KRQE.com. Go in depth on the story now. Read the audit and watch past stories on the investigation. Just search Taser investigation.
And as concerns over police brutality increase this morning, the American Civil Liberties Union is taking public policing to a whole new level with a new mobile app that anyone can use to record cops. It's called the Mobile Justice app. With the tap of your finger, the app will start recording what the public may see as police committing acts of brutality. It then sends the video to the nearest ACLU office in your area.
That really helps to raise the visibility of these police encounters and reduces the blue wall of silence that we've seen too many officers hide behind.
Now, that's not all it does, though. The app also tells you what your rights are as far as recording cops and alerts other users.
An Albuquerque mother will spend the next 5 years in prison after being convicted of child abuse. Police say she left her starving, beaten, and naked kids to live in a bathtub. In 2012, a neighbor called police to report Roberta Marquez Chavez. Officers found her girls with swollen bellies, cuts, bruises, and one even had a head fracture and bleeding to the brain. In February, Chavez pleaded no contest. Giving back to the community. For months, New Mexico inmates have been working on art projects to sell to you.
Yeah, the money they make will go back to their victims, offenders, kids, families, and to the inmates themselves. News 13's Catherine Rizzone is in the Newsplex with all the details. Good morning, Catherine.
Good morning, Crystal. Now, this is the second year for the Inmate Craftsmanship and Trades Fair. The projects are done through the Corrections Industry, or CI, and that creates jobs and programs for inmates so they can get training and experience for the future, and it's funded by its own revenues.
I've seen the growth, I've seen the excitement, I've seen a total change in some of the inmates.
Acting Director Anna Martinez says the art projects allow inmates to see life in a whole new way by seeing people care about their skills. She says a lot of inmates even donate their profits to a charity. Otherwise, the funds are divided up. 5% goes to victims, 10% goes to the offender's children and family, 15% goes back to CI, 5% goes into savings for when the inmate gets out, and the rest, 65%, goes back to the inmates. Martina says the trade fair helps inmates prepare for the future, and that means less of a chance they end up back in prison.
If we can give them any kind of program that helps them succeed, we all succeed.
Now, I spoke to an inmate about what the projects mean to him. I'll tell you what he had to say coming up in our next half hour. Back to you, Crystal.
All right, thanks, Catherine. Now you'll find everything from jewelry boxes to hope chest and paintings at the fair. It's tomorrow from 9 to 4 at the penitentiary in Santa Fe. Admission is $5. We posted a link for more information on our KRQE News app.
Happening now, the death toll in Nepal's magnitude 7.8 earthquake is topping 6,000. Police in the capital city of Kathmandu say close to 12,000 others are injured. Aid is beginning to reach devastated communities, and vigils are being held across the world, including here in Albuquerque.
It's a really bad situation right now over there, so as a human being, we wanted to help.
Dozens held a candlelight vigil in front of the UNM Student Union building last night for those killed in the earthquake-ravaged Nepal.
Another day in court in Colorado for the theater shooting trial of James Holmes. Yesterday, an emotional day of testimony as a veteran officer broke down in tears, recounting the events at the movie theater in Aurora, Colorado. Jurors were also shown video from surveillance, including pictures of people running in panic when the shooter opened fire. Holmes is accused of 12 counts of murder and 70 counts of attempted murder. He has pleaded guilty by reason of insanity. He faces a death penalty if convicted.
Kristen, thanks. Let's turn to a live look at Gallus Chevrolet this morning in Albuquerque. AFD responded to multiple car fires at that dealership late night. Happened about 12:30 at, again, Gallus Chevrolet, Lomas and University. When crews arrived, they found 3 cars on fire. Within minutes, those flames were out. The fire was contained to just those 3 cars, and now fire officials are trying to figure out if the flames were sparked by something mechanical or an arsonist. We're going to continue to monitor this and bring you the very latest as it becomes available.
We turn now to this. Some Southeast Albuquerque neighbors, they want this private-owned strip mall completely gone, saying it's a magnet for crime. Neighbors with the group United Change ABQ say this old Parkland Hills shopping center on San Mateo and Catherine is a big problem. They point to a shooting that killed a man there in February and say there's too much drug dealing and drug use happening there as well. They've started a petition to get the city to help demolish the 2 buildings on site.
We'd love to see things that we can use here as in a neighborhood, for example, a grocery, a gym. We'd love to see a police substation here.
It affects our quality of life, our safety, our property values, our morale.
So the city says the developer has told them they plan to demolish the building on Catherine and keep the building on San Mateo. However, they don't know exactly when all that will happen.
We are hearing more from one of the civilian workers who was just suspended from APD's public records unit. APD suspended 3 civilian workers who run the unit that releases police records to the public on Wednesday, saying they weren't getting the job done in a timely manner. One of those workers tells News 13 he's going to sue, and that it sometimes was APD brass telling them not to release records that could put the department in a negative light. APD's resistance to releasing records that would help keep you informed has been the subject of lawsuits against the city, including one by KRQE News 13. Changing hearts, that's what folks with the corrections industry say they're trying to do by creating jobs and programs for inmates. And one way is through inmate art projects.
Yeah, inmates from 11 prisons across the state plan to sell off their crafts tomorrow at the Inmate Craftsmanship and Trades Fair. News 13's Catherine Mazzone has all the details. Good morning, Catherine.
Good morning, Crystal. Now, these inmates put a lot of time and effort into their work. They pay for their own supplies and even use recycled products to craft their masterpieces.
It's a blast. I like doing stuff like this. This is what I like to do, is use my hands.
Ray Thomas creates coolers out of scrap pallets with some other inmates, but he says he's a big fan of the jewelry boxes and grandfather clocks up for sale. Thomas is in prison for aggravated battery and residential burglary. He's set to be released in September, but for now, his focus is on giving back to the community. There will be inmates and representatives at the fair to tell you about the art and to even create it right in front of you. Thomas says the projects help inmates prepare for life when they get released.
I think it's a really good thing. It teaches them how to work. It gives them a guideline to follow when they get out, a way to go, and it helps them to learn how to be employed and when they get jobs and stuff when they get out.
Organizers say offenders are excited to showcase their work while bringing in money for themselves, their families, and, more importantly, the victims they hurt. Back to you, Crystal.
All right, thanks, Catherine. Now, here are the details. It is tomorrow from 9 to 4. Now, the inmates will be handling all the any money. They won't be handling, rather, any money. There will also be corrections officers on hand. No sex offenders are allowed there. For more information, we posted a link on our KRQE News app.
5:35, we're staying on top of the latest developments in the WIP radiation leak. The federal government will pay the state $73 million for that spill. A drum of waste packed at Lanel with incompatible ingredients was shipped to the waste isolation pilot plant near Carlsbad. And when the chemicals reacted in February 2014, radiation escaped. Nearly 24 workers were contaminated. Federal investigators determined it could have been prevented with better management and safety procedures. The state says it'll use that money for roads and projects near the lab and the plant.
This money will go towards improving the safety and security of nuclear materials at WIP and at Lanel.
This is the largest settlement in the Department of Energy's history.
PNM is still fighting to raise your rates once again. They're pushing for a hike of about 14%. That's $10 a month for the average residential customer. Earlier this month, the hearing examiner recommended the PRC reject that proposal, saying PNM did not sufficiently make its case. PNM now says it responded to the hearing examiner, saying its original proposal was complete. It is still hoping the PRC sides with them on this rate hike. Developing now, New Mexico residents seeking a medical marijuana card will not have to prove they exhausted all other options before receiving cannabis. According to the Santa Fe New Mexican, a judge made the ruling saying the Department of Health was overstepping by requiring patients prove they tried other treatments late Wednesday. It comes after a Santa Fe psychiatrist filed suit on behalf of a client with post-traumatic stress disorder. The ruling could change the department's newest rules and application forms. Right now, the health department says it is reviewing the ruling and will look at what to do next.
Happening today in Baltimore, the family of Freddie Gray is expected to learn what caused his death.
Yeah, CBS station WJZ has learned autopsy results are expected to show Gray died from traumatic injury to his spine and suffered trauma to the back of his head. Yesterday, police revealed little about the criminal investigation they turned over to the state's attorney's office. They did, however, admit to making a previously undisclosed stop before taking Gray to that police station. Protests over Gray's death in Baltimore and several other major cities are expected to continue.
Let's turn to a live look at Washington, D.C. this early hour. The U.S. Department of Justice says 10 Chinese nationals are accused of a maternity hotel scheme. Those hotels in Southern California, and that's where they're located, and they cater to foreign pregnant women who give birth in the United States so that their babies will be automatic U.S. citizens. 9 of the defendants are alleged customers of the hotels. 1 is a material witness for the DOJ now. All 10 suspects are being accused of obstruction of justice and contempt of court after they violated federal court orders to stay in the U.S. during the remainder of the investigation.
Did that get your attention this morning? A topless protester did get the attention in Canada. She staged a dramatic interruption at a news conference yesterday. Authorities say the woman was able to get in with a press pass and stormed the podium screaming, "No to Bill 20 and my uterus, my priority." That bill is aimed at reforming the area's health care system. Some critics say the changes will affect access to health services, including abortions. But the province's health minister says there is no plan to limit abortion services at this time. It's now